Daryl Hall and John Oates met while taking cover from gunfire. Daryl Hall and John Oates comprised the duo Hall and Oates, which was part and parcel of the American music scene in the 1970s and 80s. The two musicians' meet-cute wasn't exactly cute, however. In fact, it was far more dramatic than anyone might expect. Both Hall and Oates grew up in Pennsylvania. Like so many kids from the area, they both ended up as undergraduates at Philadelphia's Temple University. They joined different music groups. Hall was part of the established Temptones, while Oates joined the up-and-coming Masters. And both acts were scheduled to perform at Philadelphia's Adelphi Ballroom on the same night in 1967. Unfortunately, the show devolved into chaos when audience members began to fight in the venue. Hall later recalled the incident. There were chains and knives, and shots rang out. Obviously, the show was over. We were on the upper floor, and there was a lift down to the street. So I ran and jumped into it, and John Oates was in it too. I said, "Oh, well, you didn't get to go on, either. How you doing? You go to Temple University. I go to Temple University. See you later. Bye." And that was it. That's how we met. Their paths continued to cross, and the pair became musical collaborators. Andre the Giant's body was flown to the U.S. for cremation because no crematorium in France was big enough. French wrestler Andre Roussimoff, who used the professional name Andre the Giant, had acromegaly, a hormonal condition caused by pituitary gland malfunction that turbocharges a person's growth. As a result, he ultimately grew to more than 7 feet tall and developed an enlarged head, hands, feet, and chest. In January 1993, 46-year-old Roussimoff was in his native France when he succumbed to congestive heart failure and a possible heart attack. As biographers Bertrand Hebert and Pat Laprade reported, Andre wanted to be cremated, but there was no crematorium in France large enough to accommodate him. Even in death, his body was difficult to accommodate. His family, especially his mother, firmly refused the option of cutting him up in pieces for the cremation to occur in France. His body had already been mutilated enough. Instead, the family opted to cremate him in North Carolina, where Roussimoff owned a ranch. According to writer Abraham Reisman, funeral director Jim Weatherspoon had to borrow a forklift from a local building supply company. When the body arrived in its massive shipping container, they used the forklift to move Andre into the garage where the crematory oven was located. Weatherspoon waited until the forklift operator left before he opened the box and saw Andre's placid face. Usually, a cremation job takes 1 funeral home employee. Andre's took 4. With great effort, the men moved Andre's body to a different wooden container, the one that would be burned with him. It took the inventor of the Rubik's Cube a month to actually solve it. Rubik's Cubes, puzzle cubes comprising movable colored blocks, have 43 billion to 152 million 3,000 to 174. 489,856,000 possible combinations. However, it theoretically should take 20 or fewer moves to solve it. If that sounds a bit intimidating, here's something that will take the sting away. Hungarian inventor Erno Rubik himself struggled with solving it. When he first developed his cube in the 1970s, he couldn't figure out how to match up all the colorful sides. It took Rubik 1 whole month to solve the puzzle. Marie Antoinette adopted an enslaved boy who had been gifted to her, remembered as the entitled villain of revolutionary France. Marie Antoinette has been the subject of stories that simply aren't true. She never said, "Let them eat cake," for example, but one story about the ill-fated French queen is true, even as it remains relatively unknown. Her relationship with Jean Amical. In 1787, a courtier presented Marie Antoinette with a gift, an enslaved boy from Senegal. He appeared to be around 6 years old. The queen instead adopted the boy, who received the name Jean Amilcar. He did not remain in the royal household for long, however. Marie Antoinette saw to it that he received an education and enrolled him in the St. Cloud School. When revolution came to France, Marie Antoinette could no longer pay for Jean's schooling. Reports conflict on what happened. Next, some claim he was expelled and lived on the streets, while others state he was taken in by a compassionate schoolteacher.